right. This is Alex and Nick in the Witness to War Project. For the sake of this interview, please state your name and the conflict you served in.
I'm Joshua Rae, and I was involved in Operation Inherent Resolve.
Okay. So we're going to start off with a few questions about your early life beforehand. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Harwich on the Cape.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school in Harwich and in Chatham. Graduated from Chatham High School.
Okay. So where did you go to, or you're going to college now, aren't you?
Yep. I'm here at 4Cs right now, studying to go to Mass Maritime next year to be involved in maritime transportation.
All right. And why the military?
So when I was 18, I was a student at Fitchburg State University, and I dropped out. And then I was working for my dad. I was painting, and that wasn't something that I wanted to do. So I joined the military, because I figured while I was doing nothing, I might as well do something that's good for good for somebody. So I decided to join the Navy, and it was something that I'd always thought about doing, but I never really had the drive to. So that seemed like a good time in my life to do it.
What made you choose Navy instead of Army?
I didn't want to be on the ground with a rifle. Same with Marines. And I'd always been attracted to the ocean, living on the Cape. So going underway on a ship always sounded fun.
All right. What age were you when you joined the military?
I was 19.
19. All right. And did you enlist, or were you
Enlisted.
You were enlisted?
Enlisted,
Okay.
yep.
And who was your closest ally, I guess I could say, in your time serving?
You mean like other country?
No, a friend.
Friend?
Yeah.
Well, I had a few, depending where I was stationed. Well, I went through 2 years of training, and there was a guy, Richard Gwind, who was my best friend. He was actually my best man at my wedding. But me and him went our separate ways. I was stationed on an aircraft carrier. He was stationed on a destroyer, or a cruiser, I'm sorry. And we kind of lost touch after that. But when I went to the aircraft carrier, there was another guy named Marcus Mack, he was one of my best friends I ever had. He's still there, and now I'm here. So, but he's a great guy.
Have you had any contact with your friends after?
Yeah, we still keep in touch on Facebook, texting.
And where do they live now?
Well, they're all over the place too. Some of them are still in Norfolk, Virginia. A lot of them are actually deployed right now to the Persian Gulf, and one of them's in San Diego, one of them's in Washington. So they're kind of all over the place.
So tell us a little bit about the Persian Gulf.
So I went to the Persian Gulf for the first time in November of 2015, and that was my first deployment on the USS Harry S. Truman, which is an aircraft carrier, and I was a fire controlman. So my job was anti-ship missile defense, utilizing the CWIS, which is a 6-barrel Gatling gun that shoots down missiles, basically, how I put it. And my job was operating it and fixing it when it breaks. Basically, I was a technician and an operator. So we went to the Persian Gulf, November 2015, and then I think it took us about a month to cross the Atlantic to go to the Mediterranean. We spent I think 2 or 3 weeks in the Mediterranean. We stopped in Croatia one time. Then we crossed the Suez. And the second we crossed the Suez, it went from the nice plush European landscapes that you'd see going by, visiting in port, olive trees everywhere, green, to just sand, like desolate. And it was crazy. It was like a switch. So we went through the Straits of Hormuz, into the Gulf of Oman, into the Persian Gulf, and that was like, we had gone from kind of being on almost like a cruise ship, seemed like, to being on an actual vessel of war, because we were just getting messed with all the time by Iranians flying drones, and they were always going by us and stuff, pointing guns at us and everything, and they were just harassing us all the time. But when we were there, we spent 7 months. We bombed Iraq and Syria pretty much 24/7. We just sent planes in. We ran 10, 11 sorties a day. We ended up dropping 425,000 tons of ordnance on Iraq and Syria during my first deployment. So
How many deployments did you have?
2.
2.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only one I went to the Persian Gulf was the first one.
And what was your second one?
The second one we went to the Eastern Med. We were attacking Syria from the Eastern Med, and then the second half of that we actually did a NATO operation in the Arctic. So basically playing war games with other ships on that one.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Arctic?
Yeah, it was cold. It was it wasn't what I expected. I thought we were going to go up there and we were going to see icebergs and snow and everything, but it wasn't. We went up and it was September or November 2018 on that. And it just, yeah, I was expecting icebergs everywhere. There were no icebergs. I mean, it was cold. We were out there busting ice off everything every morning, but it wasn't horrible. You know, it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was your happiest memory?
Happiest memory? There was a lot. I think probably my first deployment, I just couldn't wait to get home the whole time, and we got extended while we were out there for a month, which isn't that long of a time, but it's long enough to kind of crush your morale. And I just remember I got sent home 2 weeks early for early det, which is basically they take a percentage of the crew and they'll send them home so they can go prep the pier and everything for the ship's homecoming. And then when everyone comes home on the ship, they all get 5 days off, and then everyone comes on that was on early det to man the ship, so the ship's not unmanned. But I think coming home from my first deployment it was surreal. It was like almost like a year of my life. Like I left and then I came back and it was like a year later, so there's like new music, new cars, like new everything, and it was just being taken away from that like civilian culture and then being thrown back into it. It was a good feeling.
So that leads into the question is, how was it like transferring back to civilian life from being in the Navy?
It was, well, I'm still doing it. I just got out in March of this year. It was weird because I had expectations of things that I was going to get and things that I wasn't going to get. And I kind of met some and didn't meet others. So a lot of my friends got out and they got jobs with defense companies like Raytheon and stuff like that. I opted to go to college instead because I thought it would be a better opportunity for me to do that and then go get a job. But the rush and the hustle of military life is not there in the civilian world. It's almost like everything you do in the military is like prioritized for seemingly no reason, even if it's things like get this painted, like it's life or death. You got to do it, you know? And everything is like that. The working hours, 6:30 to 6:30 at night. It doesn't faze you when you're in the military, and then you come here back in civilian life and you work 8 hours and you're like, man, that was easy, and everyone else is complaining about it. You're like, oh, well, I don't know. But I think the thing that was hardest for me is the bond that I formed with all my shipmates and my friends while I was overseas. It's not really there in the civilian life because when we were underway, it was just constant on watch, waiting for something to happen, dropping bombs, waiting for them to retaliate. And really anything could have been a matter of life or death. And you spend every waking second with these guys when you're on an aircraft carrier. Like, you sleep above them, below them, they're next to you. They're always there, for better or for worse. It's crazy. So you get sick of each other, you hate each other, then you love each other, and it's great. But yeah, it's not really there in the civilian life because you get off work and then you go home. Nothing's really that much of a priority.
So, what was your rank?
I was a second class petty officer. It's E5 when I got out.
Okay. So, what was the environment like in the Middle East? You're explaining earlier that it was very sandy.
Yeah.
But what was it like in the Gulf on a ship?
It's still sandy.
Yeah.
Which was crazy because you wouldn't see land anywhere. You'd go out and it'd be ocean, and we'd still be dust and sand off everything, off all the weapon systems and everything. It was weird because people are like, the Persian Gulf's about, I think if I remember, it's about 90 miles across. from Iran to Saudi Arabia, and people take these like 15-foot skiffs like across that ocean with like a cow on it or a goat or something, and you're like, what are you doing? So it's that kind of stuff all the time, and it's very shallow and it's very calm. It's weird. It's weirdly calm. It's calmer than the sound around here, which is weird. Yeah, but we never really got too close to shore because we were aircraft carriers, so we're the high dollar target. So they didn't want to expose us to land attacks or anything like that. Yeah, it was weird. It's just like it's different. It's different. Everything's just different over there. You know, kind of on watch for every fishing vessel, because a lot of the fishing vessels would have machine guns mounted on them and everything under fishing nets or something like that. So we were always on watch for that kind of stuff. So it's just a lot more hostile in general.
So can you describe a little bit about your rank, like what you do exactly?
Yeah. So when I was a second class petty officer, I was the work center supervisor for my work center, which means I had 2 weapon systems that I was in control of. I had 7 personnel that worked for me. So my overall responsibility was to take care of those 7 personnel and the 2 weapon systems. So make sure they're always working, train people how to use them. That's basically what I did. And I would, if anything broke, I was the guy that was ordering parts, scheduling repairs, coordinating with civilian tech reps, defense companies like that to get them fixed, and with my guys to get them fixed too.
Did you have any people who looked out for you while you were serving the Navy?
Yeah, I did. It's I think it's weird because they all kind of look out for each other, but on an aircraft carrier that kind of gets lost in translation because there's 5,600 people. So it's kind of like you're all out there looking out for each other, but at the same time, you have a tighter group of people that's looking out for, like that tight group of people on the ship from everything else. I was never really in any kind of imminent danger where I had guys jumping on grenades for me or anything like that. So it was kind of a little different, but we definitely all had each other's backs.
What was it like the first time you had to bomb Syria, or you had to use your training to use like some of the, do you understand sort of like
yeah, like deadly force.
Yeah.
Well, I never actually bombed Syria myself. The pilots that were coming off of our ship was doing it. But I stood watch behind a weapon system that was capable of ripping a plane out of the sky. And we used it. We sank a couple boats. And it's, they were training boats. It's kind of eye-opening. But I think the biggest thing that was really eye-opening to me about what we were doing over there, the use of deadly force and everything, was the videos that we get back from the jets. They drop bombs and you just see the devastation that we were just destroying that place over there. There was just nothing, we were over there trying to prevent the Marines from having to go in and having another war in that area, and we were just demolishing them. And I think the first time that I saw somebody get killed on one of those video feeds coming back, it was like, holy crap, like this isn't training anymore. We're here, we're defending this ship so those guys can go out and bomb those bad guys. And I was with a couple of my friends and we all just looked and we were like, oh, that's crazy, It hits you in a way, you're just like, oh. You support it, but it's also crazy and against your civilian nature at the same time, And you just realize that at that point, it's just, that's what it takes to make this country where it is, to push it into the position it's in, It was something. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned sort of how you went after the Persian Gulf, you went to the Arctic.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do anything else afterwards, like during your military career?
No, that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
I came back from the Arctic. When did I come back? January of this year. Early January. And then I had 2 months in. I pretty much turned over my position, got my successor trained up, and then that was it. I was out.
What is it like transferring to, like, you're going through a process, like you're getting out of the military? What is that like?
It's more of a pain than you think it would be. So there's a couple of things you have to do that are just, I guess, they're just standard procedure. Like get your medical screening. They won't let you out if you have like cavities or anything like that. So you got to get all that fixed. There's a lot of screening to make sure that, like if you were going to get disabilities or something like that, they basically try to take care of all that before you get out. And there's just a lot of paperwork. It's really just a lot of paperwork. Because you get life insurance, you get health insurance, all that has to get transferred over, get taken care of, get your retirement settled up, and yeah, it's really just a lot of paperwork. That's all it is.
Can you describe to me your first mission? Like when you were put out in the carrier, what was your first job to do?
Well, the mission of my work center was always self-defense of the ship. That's always what I did. So I was always watching radar screens. Every single aircraft that came into the area, we were querying, we were making sure we knew what it was. And every surface contact, we knew what it was. But the mission of the ship, when we went over there, was mainly kept secret from the crew, which is kind of a weird thing. Because they don't want people talking about it, going home, going on Facebook, saying, hey, we're in the Persian Gulf today, we're going to bomb this, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But we went over there, and our first mission was kind of the same as all the missions that followed. We were just trying to isolate, take out ISIS superior officers and things like that. So headquarters and things like that we were going after, intelligence centers. It was pretty much the theme the whole time we were over there.
Did you ever meet the captain?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your relationship with him like?
I was way below him. But so I had a couple different captains. When I reported to the ship, Captain Roth was there for, I want to say a month, so I didn't know him. I mean, I knew who he was, but I didn't really know him. And then Captain Scholl took over. He took us on our first deployment. And he was a good captain. He was very by the book. He didn't take any kind of crap from anybody. He didn't. Everything was so by the book with him. But we did good work because of it. I think this third captain, which was his name is escaping me right now. It'll come back to me. My third captain really was down to earth. He was also very professional by the book, but he made a lot more of a priority with connecting with the crew, it felt, than the other two. Well, than the other one that I really spent time with. So a lot of the evolutions that we would do when we would do shoots or anything like that, he would be there a lot of the time, and he would come and say, oh, great job, like he was in the workspaces asking, what does that do? What does this do? That made us feel a lot more like a tight unit, which is hard to do in a whole entire city that's floating on the water, So, yeah. But other than that, it's strictly professional. It's not really, there's no joking around with him or anything like that. Yeah, the captain's very high up. But my immediate supervisor, who was a chief, so he was E7, where I was E5, me and him were very close. We were very down to earth together. We knew each other well, we had mutual respect, and any kind of orders that he would give me, I would carry out, and anything that I had problems with or I didn't see through, I didn't make sense of it, I could bring up to him and we could address it, which was good. A lot of the times people have, they just blindly follow orders, and sometimes it gets them in trouble. So my immediate supervisor was fantastic. Yeah.
What was the biggest mistake? Because you said that sometimes they blindly follow orders.
Yeah.
What was the biggest mistake you guys made from that?
So with my experience with that, there's all kinds of stuff around that. The nature of my job was more repair issues. So previous supervisor that I had before the one I just spoke about, basically, get it fixed any cost that you can do, get it fixed, which would be if you have to duct tape a hose or something, which in situations, that is called for. But if it's not called for, you don't have to do it. You're just pushing the equipment, you could break it. And if you don't have the foresight to see what kind of problems that could cause down the road, then you can just end up costing, more money to the ship. So that's the kind of stuff that I experienced. I imagine that throughout the military that differs with what kind of jobs people have. But that's what I experienced.
Mm-hmm. So can you kind of explain to me the ranks?
Yeah.
Of like on the ship.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird because there's the rank structure of the military, which is E1 through E9. So you've got seaman recruit. This is for the Navy. Seaman recruit, seaman apprentice, seaman, third class petty officer, second class petty officer, first class petty officer. Then you got chief petty officer, senior chief petty officer, master chief petty officer. So those are all your enlisted ranks. Your officer ranks go 01 through 09. And that goes, let's see, ensign, lieutenant JG, lieutenant commander, then captain, then you've got rear admiral, lower half, rear admiral, upper half, vice admiral, and admiral. And then there's also a 5-star admiral, but that's during times of war. We haven't had one of those since World War II. But on the ship, there's also a kind of a secondary rank structure, which I mentioned I was a work center supervisor. So I was an E5 and I was a work center supervisor, but I had a couple E6s below me. So I was put in a positional authority. I was given positional authority. So that, it kind of goes hand in hand with the rank structure, but they balance each other out. So it really balances if you were, for instance, a first class petty officer that had been in for 15 years, had never worked on the system that I worked on or something like that, and then you came to the ship and say I had been working on it for 4 years, rather than having them get put in charge and not know what they were doing, that kind of is a fail-safe so that the experienced experts get put in charge, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what was the, so you mentioned how sometimes that they could be below you.
Mm-hmm.
So who was there anybody below you that happened to be more experienced, but you were ahead of them, as to speak? Like,
well, so there was one first class that he had been in for 12 years when I had been in for 5. So he had, 7 years on me. But he had the sea time where I didn't really have the sea time, but just the technical expertise he didn't really have, because he was a frigate guy. He worked on what is the Mark 96, which is the gun that the frigates have, which carriers don't have. So although he was a very experienced sailor, he ended up getting put under me. So, yeah.
Okay. What was the greatest challenge you had serving?
There was a lot. There was challenges that I didn't anticipate, and there was challenges that I did anticipate. So I guess some of the things I did anticipate was just being away. I joined the Navy when I was 19, and for some reason I guess I didn't really realize the magnitude of what I had just done, because I went through boot camp, and then after boot camp I was like, oh, I'll go home for a month, be fine, whatever, and then go out. I joined, and then I didn't get to come home for a year and a half, so I was like, oh, that was different than I thought it was going to be. So there was that. So I'd pretty much never, I think I came home like 4 or 5 times the whole time I was in. And I mean, when I say home, I mean back to Massachusetts. So there was that. Being like attached to a command or like a base, you have restrictions on how far you can go. So even if it's a long weekend or something, you have to stay within 300 miles. You can't go a certain distance. But then going on deployment, like, that was hard because a lot of the times you don't get to eat. Like, if something comes up and it's lunchtime, like, well, bummer, you better take care of this. I think I lost like 40 pounds in my first deployment just because I didn't get to eat lunch for like a month straight. But it's it's just the way it goes. And another challenge was I got married a week before I deployed, which was, in hindsight, not a good idea. It was not a good idea. And then expecting to come home to that same relationship and then not. It just being totally different. Not her fault, not my fault, just being apart for so long, people grow. And when you're not around each other, you grow in different directions, and then it can kind of go south, So then after my second deployment, it kind of fell apart, but yeah. That was the one I didn't see coming, I think. Yeah. That challenge.
How did the military change your life once you were done?
I think it forced me to grow up. I think I was a kid up until I went on my first deployment. So, yeah, it took me till I was like 21 to kind of snap out of that kid mode and really just prioritize things, take care of the things that need to be done, and just have a better handle on the general situation of kind of everyday life, So rather than like I've realized going through school, when I went through school when I was just out of high school, when I graduated high school when I was 18 before I joined the military, I went through Fitchburg State, like I said. I was just blowing off class, not doing homework, whatever. And now this time I'm like studying hard, trying to actually get all A's. And it's just, it helps me see the bigger picture a little bit, I guess.
What advice would you give to a younger person interested in joining the military?
Don't listen to the recruiters. Recruiters lie. They do. I mean, listen to them, but don't take what they say literally. Just be ready. Be ready for serious changes in your life, and really try not to be afraid. Because when you come out on the other side, you come out a better person, really. That's what I think.
If you could go back and do it all over again, what would you change? What would you fix?
I don't think I would change anything. I mean, it would be easy to say, go back and, change relationships and stuff like that. But I think that all of that was right where it should have been to make me who I am, So I don't think I would change anything.
So if you could describe your military career in one word, how would you describe it?
One word. Intense. I guess.
What did the military mean to you?
So, the military was a huge part of my life. I mean, up to this point, it's like my crowning achievement, I mean, other than that, I went to high school, I dropped out of college. It made me grow up early. When I joined the military, I was still a kid. It gave me, new traits that I didn't have before I joined the military, where I can see that they were formed by the military, which I'm grateful I have now. Just being on time is a huge thing, really, when you look at it, and the military drills that into you, among other things, organization and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was very important to me.
Is there anything that the military taught you that you still use today?
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, all the traits. I mean, when I went to school before, when I was at Fitchburg, I would skip class, I didn't do homework, I didn't really care. I think it made me see the big picture a little bit more, helped me kind of nail down time management, things like that. So now I'm going through school again, and it's like night and day, my experience from what I had before to where I'm going through now. Being able to just show up on time in classes, do homework, it's not a question, you just do it, I think I got that from the military.
Mm-hmm. So are there any messages that meant a lot to you during your service?
What do you mean by messages?
Like, were there anything that sort of kept you going through it that you used as like a motto, or you wanted to?
I think well, I think my first deployment I got more dragged through than kept pushing through. But my second deployment I had 7 guys under me, and I could see that they were struggling, and they motivated me to, keep everything on the straight and narrow, go make everything as easy as I could for them. I think that was my biggest motivating factor. Yeah.
All right. Are there any? What was I gonna say? It was. Oh boy. We can cut this part out, but I forgot what I was gonna say. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Like, what is a hero to you?
Yeah. What would you define as a hero?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because before I joined the military, I thought that everybody who served was a hero, no matter what. And that's true in some regards. But there's a lot of people in the military that are kind of dirtbags, But, I think that it's weird that the military is like regular people, It's just people like you and me. They're influenced by society the same way that you and me are, the same way the civilian sector is. I guess a hero is somebody who just kind of puts themselves second. If somebody's able to put themselves second for the betterment of others, yeah, I'd say that's probably my definition of a hero. If somebody's able to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
It was nice
Thank you,
talking to
Alex.
you.
It's good talking to you.
Okay.